June 2026, post-blue moon. Every hour you ignore this, you lose a layer that will not return. The event has already passed in the sky. The real impact is happening within you now, in silence, without spectacle, and your window of integration closes in 3 weeks. You have woken up this past week with a tightness in your chest, with no apparent cause. Your sleep was broken at 3:47 in the morning, at least once. The urge to cry hit you in the middle of a mundane task, in the shower at a traffic light. You are not sick. You are being reorganized from within, in a process that has a technical name, the blue phase effect or blue phase effect. And if you do not name this process now, you will return to your routine as if nothing had happened, and the cycle will close, wasted. I need to tell you something before I continue. What is reaching you now is not a coincidence. You were pulled into this broadcast for a somatic reason, not an algorithmic one. There is a weight descending into your solar plexus as you hear this, and that weight is recognition. Pressure at the base of your skull as if someone had placed their hand there. Lower back pain that appeared without physical exertion. Fatigue that sleep does not resolve, because it is not fatigue of the body, it is decompression of the field. Vivid dreams about people from your past, especially from your maternal or paternal lineage, people who have passed on, people you haven't thought about in years. A desire to cancel commitments that previously excited you. Resistance to noise, to notifications, to crowds. This is the blue moon ending inside you. This is your inherited programming starting to crack. The blue moon has passed, but within you it has only just begun. There is a brutal difference between what happens in the sky and what happens in you, and that difference is where most people lose the opportunity of the decade. The blue moon is technically the second full moon within the same month or season, a rare event, usually every 2 or 3 years. Astronomically, it is amplified light. Energetically, it is compression and revelation. But the point no one explains to you is that the effect of the blue moon does not end when it disappears from the sky. The effect begins to manifest in the following 3 to 6 weeks, and it is precisely in this post-event window that your internal structure reorganizes or crystallizes again, depending on what you do with it. I will explain to you in a moment why the first phase of this post-impact, the compression phase, is the most important signal of all, and what most interpret as a problem. Before that, there is another detail about the invisible agreements you made with yourself, agreements that no common therapy touches, and that this blue moon has placed on the table to be renegotiated. I will return to this point as well. Before moving forward, I need you to do one very specific thing. Comment below the word realigned in all caps if you felt that weight descend into your chest just now. This word is an anchor. You are telling your own nervous system that you recognize the process. And you will need this anchor in 20 minutes when we enter the exposure phase, because that is when your psyche will want to run away. Comment, realigned. I read everyone. There is a silent villain behind all of this, and I want you to see it clearly before we continue. This villain has a name, collective unconsciousness. It is the inherited programming that you need to be productive, useful, available, performing, even when your field is asking for decompression without disguise. The society that your lineage built for you does not know how to deal with cosmic post-impact. It knows how to deal with performance. Therefore, what does it do when you are in integration? It tells you to react. Go back to working out, go back to posting, go back to producing. Get out of this laziness, have a coffee, react. But your soul did not ask for a reaction. It asked for reconfiguration. And reconfiguration requires stillness, not stimulation. Every time you answer the call of collective unconsciousness and force yourself to react at this moment, you push back into your body the information that was trying to rise. And what was trying to rise does not disappear. It becomes a symptom. It becomes inflammation. It becomes chronic insomnia. It becomes a lump in your throat that lasts for months. It becomes that feeling of living someone else's life. Because the first enemy of your integration is not a person. It is not an external situation. It is the programmed noise that teaches you to fear your own decompression. And here comes the most delicate moment of this broadcast, because I am going to be very honest with you. Everything I am going to teach you now, all the phases that lie ahead: the compression, the exposure, the expansion, the revision of the invisible agreements, the recognition of the pattern of perpetual preparation. All of this you can apply on your own. You will leave this broadcast knowing exactly what is happening inside you, and that is already more than 95% of people will understand this week. But there is a detail that few people tell you. Knowing is not the same as being able to sustain. You will try to apply this alone in the first week, and you will get stuck on the third day, not because the method doesn't work, because real application requires a layer of guided practice that doesn't fit in a video. When the exposure phase arrives around the 10th day post-moon, your mind enters a state that feels like self-sabotage, but functions as a defense of the old system. Your identity built upon the invisible agreements will resist. It will generate thoughts like, "This is nonsense, you are being dramatic. Get back to focusing on work. Who do you think you are to have this kind of experience?" And at that moment, without an external structure to hold you, most people abandon the process and rationalize the withdrawal as maturity. And you lose the window, not the astronomical window, the internal window. The complete application system is in the first pinned comment, and it is called the Fortune Matrix. It is not a generic astrology course, it is a 90-day guided structure with daily modules, accompanied contemplative practice, and a checkpoint system that pulls you back when your inherited programming tries to convince you to give up on the third day. There is a case I always remember. A woman from Seattle, 42 years old, accountant, slept 7 nights in a row for the first time in a decade after applying the Fortune Matrix in the post-blue moon window. And in 60 days, she broke 3 invisible agreements she carried from her maternal lineage, including a financial pattern of scarcity that she traced back 3 generations before her. The investment is ridiculous compared to the cost of 1 more year repeating the same cycle that brought you here without having unlocked anything. The spots for this specific window close in 48 hours, because each cohort is conducted in waves, synchronized with the cosmic calendar, and the next wave only opens after the solstice. There is a 7-day guarantee, so you join, try the first modules, and if you feel it is not your moment, you get a refund at no cost. For those who are ready, access in the first pinned comment. You were born seeing what others do not see, and you spent your life apologizing for it. Stay silent for another year, lose who you were. But before you go there, let me show you the next layer of this, because there is something I haven't been able to explain to you until now with all the density it deserves, and it is the heart of the post-impact. The first phase, compression, is when your life begins to feel smaller on the inside. Not smaller in the sense of failure, smaller in the sense that goals that seemed immense 3 weeks ago now seem distant, almost strange, written by someone else. You look at your list of goals and feel a morbid emptiness. This is the most important signal of all, and collective unconsciousness teaches you to interpret it as depression. But this has no clinical name. It is your psyche recognizing that half of what you were chasing was performance for an invisible audience, not real direction. The compression lasts between 7 and 14 days. During this period, your perception of urgency disappears, and this is frightening, because urgency was the fuel that kept you functional. Without urgency, you find yourself facing the question your lineage taught you to avoid. What do I want when no one is measuring? This question is the portal. The Fortune Matrix comes in exactly here in the compression, because there is a specific protocol for this phase that prevents you from filling the void with distraction and losing the depth of the question. Without this protocol, most people open their phone, scroll the feed for 3 hours and close the window without realizing they closed it. I said I would return to the invisible agreements. I have returned. Comment now below in all caps, "I break the silent vow that brought me here." Do not write it as a decorative phrase, write it as an active decree. When you write this decree in a public place, even if it is in the comments section, your psyche registers it as an external contract, and an external contract is stronger than internal intention because it has a witness. The witness stops the automatic return to the old pattern. Write it. I read everyone, and each commented decree enters a collective field that we activate during this post-moon week. The blue moon has passed, but within you it has only just begun. The second phase of the post-impact is exposure, And this is the phase that makes most people run back to unconsciousness. It happens between the 10th and the 21st day after the blue moon. In this phase, your mind begins to separate with brutal clarity what you wanted out of authentic choice and what you wanted out of inherited pressure, habit, or fear of having no value. Marriages that seemed stable begin to show their real structure. Jobs that seemed comfortable reveal the cost they were exacting in silence. Friendships that seemed reciprocal show the direction of the flow. This exposure does not arrive as a dramatic crisis. It arrives as a subtle perception that grows day after day until it becomes an unnegotiable truth. And your inherited programming will try to convince you that this perception is an exaggeration, a phase, hormones, stress, lack of gratitude. But your somatics know. That tightness in your chest when you open a specific message on your phone, it was there before the moon. The moon just made it so you can no longer not feel it. Therefore, exposure does not arrive as punishment. It arrives as returning lucidity. That is why most people flee from it. The third phase is expansion, and it only arrives for those who crossed the two previous ones without fleeing. Expansion usually happens between the 21st and the 40th day. It is when new ideas begin to appear with architectural clarity, without the anxious noise that used to precede any project. Opportunities that seemed closed reopen through unexpected paths, usually through an unplanned conversation with someone you haven't seen in a long time. Directions that seemed impossible gain pragmatic contours, and the most cutting part, an operational serenity appears, a type of calm that does not come from disinterest. It comes from structural confidence in one's own reading of the world. But this expansion has a trap. If you did not revise the invisible agreements in the previous phase, the expansion enters on top of the same old foundation, and in 3 months you reproduce the same cycle in a new shell, with a new name, new partner, new job, and the same old pain. Therefore, integration is not optional. It is architecture. I spoke of invisible agreements twice, and now I want you to see them head-on. Invisible agreements are contracts you made with yourself, usually before the age of 12, about who you need to be loved, accepted, protected, considered. For example, I only have value if I am useful. I am only loved if I am not a burden. I only belong if I adapt to the tone of the house. I am only safe if I am predictable. I am only noticed if I am exceptional. These contracts were useful in childhood. They kept you functional in an environment you could not change. But you are no longer that child, and the environment is no longer that one. And the contracts remain active, running in the background, deciding who you date, what job you accept, how much you charge, when you stay silent, where you twist yourself to fit in. The blue moon reveals these contracts because the energetic amplification no longer allows them to operate invisibly. They rise to consciousness as discomfort, irritation, claustrophobia in situations that previously seemed normal. Therefore, this discomfort you are feeling does not function as a symptom of disease, it functions as a revelation. And once revealed, the contract loses most of its power because its power depended on invisibility. There is a pattern I want to name because it is the most treacherous of all. I call it perpetual preparation. It is the pattern of those who live always ahead of their own life, waiting for the perfect moment to be happy. When I lose 5 kilos, when I finish this course, when I pay off this debt, when I have a stable relationship, when I have more time, when the children grow up, when I feel ready. This pattern is different from healthy ambition, and the difference lies in a somatic detail. Healthy ambition has joy in the execution. Perpetual preparation has anxiety in the execution and postponement in the enjoyment. The person in perpetual preparation is never here. They are always in the next phase, and when they reach the next phase, they discover it was only the antechamber of another phase. And so goes an entire life, 20, 30, 40 years, always preparing to start living. The blue moon shows this pattern in a specific way. You suddenly realize you have been preparing for 20 years, and you can no longer name for what. This is the awakening. It is also the point where collective unconsciousness pulls you back with more force, because it is the point where your freedom starts to cost dearly to others who wanted you predictable. Integration is the word no one teaches, but it is the pivot of everything. What matters in the end is not the peak of the celestial event. It matters how you integrate. Integration means that priorities begin to reorganize without drama. Relationships begin to show the real place they occupy. Old plans are reviewed without guilt. Identity adjusts from within, not from adaptation to external expectation. This reorganization seems slow in days, but it is radical in weeks. In 90 days, the person who applied integration is no longer the same one who entered the blue moon. And it doesn't happen as a cosmetic change, it happens as a structural rewrite. Integration without a method is beautiful poetry that evaporates in 3 weeks. Integration with a method is architecture that sustains itself for 3 years. That is why the fortune matrix exists, and that is why applying it alone usually gets stuck exactly on the 3rd day of the exposure phase. The blue moon has passed, but within you it has only just begun. I promised to return to a 4th point, and I have returned. There is a final phase that few cross, and I left it to tell you here at the end for a reason. After expansion comes what I call operational return. It is when you return to the apparent routine, with the same commitments, the same places, the same people, but you are no longer the same structure on the inside. And most interpret this return as proof that nothing has changed. But the change is not in the external yet. It is in the internal response you give to every familiar stimulus. You sit in the same chair at work, but your relationship with that environment has already detached. You visit your mother and realize for the first time patterns that had been there for 40 years without you naming them. You open your phone, and the old gesture of seeking distraction no longer gives you the relief it gave before. This is the sign that integration has consolidated. It is from this point on that external changes begin to appear with force, usually between the 3rd and the 6th month post-moon. Those who give up before this point lose the most valuable effect of the entire cycle and usually give up without realizing it, returning to old habits as if they had never gone through anything. Everything that is descending within you in this window does not arrive as punishment. It does not arrive as a crisis. It does not arrive as a problem to be solved with medicine or distraction. It arrives as cosmic reorganization operating through your somatics. You have 2 options. Watch this reorganization happen through you with presence, or try to push it back and get sick more slowly. The first option is called courage. The second is called programming. You know which one you are choosing by what you do in the next 72 hours. If you return to your routine as if nothing happened, pretending that tightness in your chest was stress, that waking up at 3:47 was common insomnia, that crying in the shower was hormones, you sign a contract for 1 more year with the same identity. If you name it pause, integrate, you give a new name to the person who will emerge on the other side of these 6 weeks. And they are already being generated at this very moment, under your ribs. Even while you hear this, even while your rational mind tries to minimize what is being said here. Are you ready to let die what you sustained, just to not disappoint people who don't even really know you? This is the real currency of the post-blue moon. The answer does not come through words, it comes through the body. Look at your body now. What is it telling you? That weight in your chest that returned in the last few hours, that urge to close your eyes and stay for 3 hours with nothing and no one, that fatigue that doesn't ask for sleep, it asks for silence. This is the answer. And your answer is wiser than your mind will ever be. The blue moon has passed, but within you it has only just begun, and it began exactly now, the moment you recognized the process. This recognition is the decree that reorganizes your internal matrix, and it only works if you do not deviate in the next 6 weeks. I showed you the terrain. I gave you the maps of the 3 phases of the invisible agreements, of perpetual preparation, of integration, and of operational return. But a map does not cross territory. You are the one who crosses, and crossing alone without structure is what makes 90% of people lose the entire cycle and repeat the same life with a different name. For those who want to go beyond what they saw here today, the complete system is in the first pinned comment, the fortune matrix. There you have the 90-day structure, the daily modules, the guided practice, the checkpoint system that holds you when inherited, Programming tries to pull you back on the third day. Spots for this window close in 48 hours. 7-day guarantee. Direct access via the pinned link. And now the last gesture. Comment below your sun sign along with the word awakened. For example, Taurus awakened, Sagittarius awakened, Aries awakened, Cancer awakened, Scorpio awakened. I read everyone, and each sign that comments enters a collective field of integration that we activate throughout this post-moon week. You are not doing this alone. You were born seeing what others do not see, and perhaps you spent years apologizing for it. The blue moon ended that chapter. The next chapter does not wait for tomorrow. It does not ask for permission. It does not ask for readiness. It begins in you now, in the silence under your ribs. And whoever deviates from the silence in the next 72 hours signs up for one more year of who they never were.